Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Sports Resort. I am your host, Gannon Cornley, with my co-host here, Toby Todd. I want to welcome you guys to our NFL special episode. We'll call it 47 and a half, right in the middle, in between 47 and 48. But we have a lot of NFL news to cover this week. We couldn't get it all in on our regular show, so we wanted to bring to you guys a special episode dedicated just to the NFL. As most of you avid NFL fans know, the Madden ratings are slowly and surely being released. Some of them I definitely agree with. Some of them is pathetic, and we'll get into all of that. What this episode will be about, covering some of our top 10 at different various positions as we head into this upcoming season. We'll be talking about the top 10 and some of Madden's rankings. We'll continue to do the top 10 with CBS and kind of following along with what they have versus what we have here on our show. So we'll kind of get all that into it. We'll, of course, bring up some headlines and things we did not cover on this most past recent episode. So as the news just continues to go day by day, ain't that right, Colts fans? So man, got a feel for them. But nonetheless, we're going to jump right into it as we'll kind of just go segment by segment here. First, we want to start with our biggest headlines, the lead. Starting with QB. We didn't know he would be the QB, but he is now officially going to be the QB of the Green Bay Packers. That is the one and only Aaron Rodgers. He went off, to put it very lightly, in his recent media session as he returned to the team. Very thorough, broke it down like all in the season, all at the beginning of the offseason, basically month by month, leading up to the draft. Kind of let exactly what he was feeling, what he was thinking. What did you make of that as he just held nothing back, talked about everything under the sun?
Well, personally, I love it. I hate the, sort of just vanilla answers that all athletes give whenever questions are asked. Reporters, they want to probe, get information. And usually the athletes say, well, that's between me and the GM, me and the front office, me and my teammates, all that. So I really liked it. It was very transparent from Aaron Rodgers. He was very well spoken. I think Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people had questions. Why would he be doing this? Is he sort of a diva, drama queen, all this, that, the other? And I think he put it out there. He laid it out. He told you why. He told you how. Everything that you wanted to know from Aaron Rodgers, he would give you the answer. And I thought he was very articulate. I think he comes out looking phenomenal in this. The way he approached it was actually very professional, in my opinion. Even with the holdouts and waiting it out to get what he wants. Then you got Guntakis, the GM, talking about he's earned a seat at the table to, help make decisions regarding the team, which is something he should have had all along. But I guess he finally caved, if you want to put it that way. But I loved it. I loved what Rodgers did. He lived his best life in the offseason. He came back. He was poignant. And obviously the reigning MVP. He's great on the field and stellar off of it as well. And I'm very happy for him that he's back playing football. And I look forward to some big things from Rodgers this year.
I loved it. That is my MVP right there. Came back like a boss. Got exactly what he wanted in the end too, because now he's able to void his contract when he wants to if he wants to at the end of this season. So if he wants to jump ship, he can with no ties holding him down. He can do really what he wants, and then it's up to him to decide if he wants to come back for a year. Maybe Devontae Adams can convince him to come back, do maybe one last contract, not necessarily one last year, as they had the Last Dance reference together. I don't know, but I love it. I love that he just spilled it all out there. Just let him know. And it makes sense. I mean, I really, there's some people out there who are crying about you sounding like a diva. To me, it made sense. He was upset with how they treated some of the players, and he named them. He went on a tangent about the number of different players, guys that, some of the best players that ever play for that franchise, that he felt that were kind of disrespected on the way out the door. And now he sees that disrespect being done to himself, and he wants it to end with him. And I don't think that there's any better way to address that. You know, he did it. He went about it his own way. He talked about it like a man. You know, this is exactly why I did this. This is my reasoning. And then, you know, he let his voice be heard, and then it was up to him for how he reacted, and he went about it. Now, he was a distraction, but, you know, it wasn't his fault. It was a distraction via the media. You can see Aaron Rodgers coming out publicly bashing the Packers. He wasn't out there saying this is nonsense, this is this is that. He was out living his best life. This man got engaged, was on vacation, out here doing golf tournaments, like chilling with the Super Bowl MVP. My man's out here just living his best life. So I loved every second of that. I wish it would have been longer. They don't want me. They don't want me on that podium because I would have said something crazy.
Yeah, well, you probably wouldn't have been retained by the Packers based on things said in private about their team. You know, because
matter of fact, I don't think Green Bay would welcome me back.
No, I definitely not. And knowing you, I don't think you'd want to be in Green Bay anyhow.
No, it's cold. Although it's so hot here right now, I might take a little bit of that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean until October, it'll be right back down here.
Yep. Then nope, we're going right back here.
Yeah.
You right about that.
Yeah, that's something he was talking about was who would want to go to Green Bay if not to play with me. I mean,
right.
He's got a point. If they were bad, good luck getting people to go up there.
Yeah, anybody going there. But yeah, we definitely had to talk about that as he went off. I loved it. That's my quarterback right there. That's my guy. And some other news. We mentioned it briefly in our episode 47, but Deshaun Watson has returned to camp. He is still looking to be traded. Right now, they're just, you know, it's a long waiting game as they continue to, on the legal side of things, continue to duel it out in court. So what happens, Deshaun Watson is available to be traded now, as the Texans have said that they want 5 super high draft picks. Don't know who even has 5 super high draft picks to even do that. But that is what they are currently seeking. So they went from there's absolutely no way that he leaves to now there at least is some light at the end of the tunnel for Deshaun Watson. So we'll have to see what plays on there. Dak Prescott had to leave practice early after I believe he had a right muscle strain. Of course, he, you know, had his season ended after breaking his leg, or breaking his ankle, whichever the one it was. Not obviously not an ideal way for him to go into a contract here. He again is he finally got the bag. He got the contract that he wanted. Well, not necessarily. He got the franchise tag that's worth a lot of money, but he's still seeking the contract that he wants. So that's major news for a guy who's on kind of a bounce back here. And Lamar Jackson. I don't know what's going on, my guy. Stay safe out there. Prayers up to you. My man has gotten COVID now for the second time. And I believe, did he not have COVID at one point last offseason?
I don't know if it was last offseason or if it was that game. Remember where they postponed it until a Wednesday against the Steelers?
Right.
He might have been part of that Ravens group that was dealing with COVID then. Because, you know, they didn't like to release the names.
Yeah.
But now they love releasing the names, so you can tell who's vaccinated, who's not, who's catching it, and who isn't.
Listen, I'm here to blame, you know, Lamar Jackson for anything. Just he's gotten COVID. I thought he was a part of something COVID related, either before or during the season, and now we know he's gotten COVID for the second time. So, you know, prayers out to him. Just hope he stays safe out there, and you know he can get past that.
Yeah, he was covering them kids at the park too close when he was doing DB Lamar stuff.
He needs to just play receiver. He was burning those guys. He was playing receiver.
Don't let the haters hear that, though.
Yeah, whatever. He's a quarterback. He is a quarterback. One of the biggest news going into today's episode was the injury of Carson Wentz, which for Colts fans, that's gotta hurt. Carson Wentz suffered a toe. I believe it was a toe injury. Or it was a foot. They said it was a foot. I thought it said toe. He's going to undergo some further testing on a toe injury that he suffered during yesterday's practice. He is out indefinitely, and some of the news has been speculating that he could be out roughly around a month or so, which is highly not ideal, seeing how the season gets started about a month and a week from today, or from this upcoming Sunday, or Thursday. They have a Thursday night game, so it's a month and a week from yesterday is when our NFL season will be getting kicked off, and there's a potential chance that the Colts will be without the man that they traded, which caused a massive ripple effect across the NFL offseason. What do you think on this recent Carson Wentz news?
Yeah, this is it's very heartbreaking for the Colts, and the Colts are no stranger to this at all. I saw a tweet earlier today that talked about how the Colts, when it first came out that Wentz left practice with a foot injury, they attempted to downplay it. Like they attempted to downplay Peyton Manning's neck injury that kept him out. Like they attempted to downplay Andrew Luck's shoulder injury. And then again in the offseason, downplay some Andrew Luck injuries. And he eventually retired before the season even started. Remember that whole day? That was insane. And so the Colts, they've got this history of quarterbacks getting injured or being injured going into the offseason and going into the season. They downplay it, and then it's more serious than originally had hoped. And so if you're Wentz and you're the Colts, and really if you're anybody who enjoys football, you really hope that this is not one of those scenarios. But the more news that came out throughout the day, the worse it sounded. And I'm a big fan of the young quarterbacks getting shots. I like seeing, backup quarterbacks play football games. I don't know why. They just get the chance and, maybe they run with it and have a Tom Brady-like story. But I can tell you I'm not as excited to watch Jacob Eason or Sam Ehlinger start the gauntlet of the Colts schedule that we looked at before. Not as excited about seeing those guys play than seeing Wentz in the new digs with the Colts offense. I guess if silver lining, Jonathan Taylor's definitely a first-round running back in fantasy now.
Yeah.
Got to go get Jonathan Taylor now.
Yeah.
I guess a silver lining, but yeah, extremely unfortunate. You feel for Wentz, you feel for the Colts, and hopefully the news gets better. But yeah, it's tough right now.
Yeah, that's a tough break. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a quarterback battle between Sam Ehlinger and Jacob Eason over in Indianapolis for who's going to be taking the starting reps. Right now, I believe it's Jacob Eason taking the starting reps, but come preseason and game time, we'll see how that's going to shake off. But that does lead us to some other QB battles, all involving rookies. We have, or at least most involving rookies. For right now, the Patriots are currently impressed with Mac Jones. They're still currently sticking with Cam Newton as their starter, with Jones closely behind him as the backup. Over in San Francisco, they have named Jimmy Garoppolo as remaining the starting quarterback, with Trey Lance as the number 2 behind him. And Andy Dalton, as it was stated before they even right after the selection, pretty much Andy Dalton will be the starter for the Chicago Bears, followed by Justin Fields. So we'll get to see. It'll be a minute before we kind of get to see some of these rookie quarterbacks in action, but based on the track record of the guys in front of them, I think we'll be seeing them a little earlier than some may anticipate. And then with Aaron Rodgers obviously not leaving to go to Denver like many had assumed, that leaves a nice quarterback battle for us to decipher between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Pretty much Monte is just crying in his closet. He doesn't know what's going to go on between his quarterbacks. He's not too impressed with either one, so I don't think Monte knows what he thinks about the QB situation.
No, it's hard to know when the options are. Essentially what it is, what it feels like, is you're like, they do the same things, Bridgewater and Locke. at the end of the day, Locke's probably going to take a little bit more risk, maybe turns the ball over more. Bridgewater, he's going to play it safe, but you're not going to be as explosive. So, picking between them. For Monte, though, it could be better if Watson is suspended or has to miss some time. The Texans quarterback battle is Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills. So just know there's always somebody doing worse out there, Monte. It's only one team that I can think of, but there is somebody out there that has got it worse.
Maybe the Texans.
As for my own team, of all the quarterback controversies we just named, I feel like Mac Jones might be the rookie that's most equipped to just go in and play in his system right away. But I also believe the Patriots have the best quarterback of the ones we just named. And I think a lot of it, like, there was some doomsday last year, like, we threw less than double-digit touchdown passes with Cam Newton. There was all this, that, and the other. I mean, it was still a 7-win football team. It really wasn't that bad of a team. We didn't have weapons. We have better weapons now. I think Cam Newton can bounce back, personally, in New England. And I believe if they let him start the season and he gets acquainted with Henry, he gets acquainted with Jonnu Smith, he finds Aguilar, and Aguilar catches it. If we can do some of that, then it might be a little bit before you see Mac Jones, maybe not even the entire season. And obviously by that point, Mac Jones will be on the older end of the spectrum for young quarterbacks, having come out as I don't know if he came out as just a regular senior or a super senior, but he's old for rookie quarterback standards at this point.
Yeah.
With everybody going early like Fields and Lance and Lawrence, obviously. But, yeah, I think the one that I'm most surprised about and that I want your opinion on is the Andy Dalton and Justin Fields situation. Because the Bears, they traded up. They traded up to go get their guy. And as soon as they drafted him, they said, "You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy." And they went red rifle right away, and I know he's got the experience. And maybe it would behoove the Bears and Fields to let Dalton get a little bit of run at the beginning. But, I mean, this is a playoff team last year. This is a team that was in the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Andy Dalton, I don't think is worse than Mitch Trubisky. Well, are we going to see Justin Fields early this year, at any point this year?
I mean, yeah, I think there'll be some pressure. They'll give into it just like they did last year. Things weren't going well with Mitch Trubisky, and they rushed Nick Foles in there, who really didn't do too much better. But I think the Bears, they're not a bad team. They're just they have a lot of decent pieces, but not enough to put them over the top, I think. And so they're going to lose some games, and there's going to be some pressure from the fan base to see something new. Because I think we know where we're going to get Andy Dalton. He's not going to make the best plays in the world, but he also is good enough to not maybe lose you some games that maybe you could. So I definitely think that we'll see Justin Fields. I'm also interested to know what are they doing with Nick Foles? Like, that's too good of a guy to have as your third string quarterback. So maybe he gets traded to Indianapolis now after that fiasco.
That's true. He could. I know there's a few teams out there who seem to have their quarterbacks in order, but are still looking for guys beyond that. I know the Jets are in the market for a veteran quarterback, since the only player on their roster who's thrown a pass is – yeah, I mean, the Titans obviously could. Yeah, but I think the only player on the Jets roster who's thrown a pass is Jamison Crowder. So I think they were looking for like a veteran quarterback to come in and sort of show Zach Wilson the way, instead of just throwing him into the fire and saying, "Work with it."
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's situations out there where he could go and he could, land a roster spot. But, yeah, that's an interesting place for a quarterback. It always has been, but really interesting place for your quarterbacks right now as well. Sort of the quarterback limbo, if you will, around the league. You go to Chicago and you figure out, am I going to go somewhere else and get a job, or does my career die here? That's pretty much what it's been. I hate to say it, but I mean, there's a number 2 overall pick is a number 2 in the Northeast now. That's just Chicago can do that to people.
Yeah, well, with some remaining news from the camps around the league, the Giants have cut tight end Kelvin Benjamin for one of the funniest things I think I've ever heard. He was stealing food from the team cafeteria. He showed up to workouts and practice overweight, and he brought food back to his dorm. He was taking food overnight back to his home, so he got cut for that and had an argument about it, which is really funny to me. Saints head coach Sean Payton was pretty upset about the timing of Michael Thomas's surgery, thinking that was not very beneficial of their team when he decided to do that. Of course, we have Xavier Howard, as we mentioned earlier in our show early this week. He has requested a trade out of Miami, pretty much forcing their hands. So we're going to see who is going to be in the sweepstakes for Xavier Howard. And Chandler Jones, in shocking fashion, actually asked out of his contract out of Arizona. So those are 2 premium talents there that could be on the move before the NFL season gets going. So that is very, very interesting. And I don't even really want to get into this, but we do have to mention it. Find out for yourself. Just go and look this up about former NFL safety TJ Ward making a fool out of himself after ripping Coach Ron Rivera for having cancer. He blamed him for having cancer. I don't understand. I don't even want to get into it because I don't even want to get us down that path. But just go look it for yourself and make your own opinion. But to me, that was highly inappropriate and ridiculous. So check out TJ Ward there. But that'll wrap it up for just our NFL news around this week. The biggest news, I think, being Carson Wentz getting injured and being announced today. He'll be out indefinitely. So if you're a Colt fan, that is an absolute nightmare. Pat McAfee was going nuts today, I saw. He went to the field and was warming up. There's a video of him warming up, which is pretty funny. So we'll see if Pat McAfee will come to the rescue for the Indianapolis Colts. But right now, what I'm needing is someone to come and rescue these people doing the Madden ratings. Because that is our next segment as we transition over to this now. As they're slowly but surely revealing pretty much the top 10, what we've kind of done, revealing their top 10. Each day they do a new position. And they've actually, as of today, started releasing the next 10 for a couple positions. Don't even get me started on that. But just to break it down, we'll start with the QBs. Already have a major gripe, and we'll just break it down by position. We'll kind of quickly go over it. So with their top 10, they have Patrick Mahomes at a 99, Tom Brady at 97, Aaron Rodgers at 96, Russell Wilson 94, Lamar Jackson 91, Deshaun Watson at 90, Josh Allen at 88, Dak Prescott at 87, along with Ryan Tannehill at 87, and Matt Ryan as 85 to round out their top 10. Real quick, this is how I know Madden is just full of it. What else can you do? And I told you, I think we talked about this off air. They were not going to respect Aaron Rodgers, and I knew they weren't going to respect Aaron Rodgers. What more can you do than be the MVP, and you still have 2 people higher than you at your own position? It's absolutely abysmal. I understand that you're a huge Tom Brady fan, and I love me some Patrick Mahomes. That is agreed. I think Mahomes being a 99 is perfectly fine. I'm sorry. Aaron Rodgers, minimum 98. He should have been in the 99 club. He can't have a better season than what he had last year. And I don't know what you want. 47 touchdowns, I believe 5 interceptions on the season. Or maybe it was 45 and 7. I think that's what it was. 45 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the season. Over 4,000 yards. Led his team to the number 1 seed in the NFC Championship. From an individual standpoint, I know the Packers fell short of where they wanted. That's egregious. That is just terrible. But I knew that was going to happen. So I'm not even going to – I'm going to just leave it there. I was pretty shocked about the gap. After Russell Wilson, it just goes downhill. They're just like, you know what? The rest of you guys just need work. Deshaun Watson, I don't know what he's done. Maybe they're holding back because of his current allocations, but he has done nothing to warrant a 90. Deshaun Watson, on the field is easily a top 5 quarterback in my opinion, and that I don't know what they're doing there with being at only a 90. Like, he's just scratching the surface of a 90. That's terrible. Josh Allen, this man was in the MVP conversation here, and this man's an 88. I do love that they finally gave some love to my boy Ryan Tannehill. Even then, I think he could be a step above Dak. How is this man side by side since he's taken over the Tennessee Titans? He has Mahomes level stats, and he's the same rated as a guy who played 4 games last year and broke his leg. I think that's ridiculous as well, and it has been to an AFC Championship game in the last 2 seasons. Dak Prescott has won 1 playoff game, so I'm just going to leave that there. So that was my overall takeaways from the QBs. We'll kind of speed along with the other positions. Just QB's always one of the biggest talking points. So I don't know if you had anything to add on that.
No, I mean, we talked about it. I thought it was going to be Mahomes 99, Rodgers 98, Brady 97. So I'm not surprised to see Mahomes 99. I think he's the best quarterback. I think he's by far the most skilled. And he's a total cheat on Madden if you use him. Totally not fair. Connor. And, yeah, but Rodgers being a 96, I mean, yeah, it seems a little bit slighted. I'm also not entirely surprised by the gap between Wilson and the others, because I think those 4 quarterbacks kind of separate themselves. Every season we talk about it. And, I mean, Russell Wilson, he always starts the season as the number 1 quarterback, and he always falls to that number 4 spot. But by the end of the year, they've always kind of separated themselves. But I think you're spot on. Josh Allen at 88 is the biggest one that I saw. I mean, I don't know if he's as good as Lamar. I think his ceiling actually might be higher, but an 88, like, I don't.
That is horrible.
I don't know, man.
Deshaun Watson a 90.
Deshaun Watson at 90.
The Texans are bad, but come on.
Yeah, it's weird because, and you talked about this too, how they usually have a bunch of quarterbacks in that 90s. They have a bunch of quarterbacks up in the 90s. They don't have any in the 80s, and they're just really bad. But this year, they've got a bunch of quarterbacks in the 80s, even the next few out. I told you I think Baker's a guy who lives in those mid-80s. Baker, he's mid-80s. Matthew Stafford is mid-80s. Derek Carr's mid-80s. So, I mean, they gave a lot of guys mid-80s this year, which I thought was good. But probably should bump that top end a little bit higher up, if you ask me. That 5 through 6, 4 through 6 range probably could take a few steps up.
I don't understand what they're looking at. Why is Justin Herbert only an 80? What is that about? He's lower than Derek Carr. They think he's the 3rd best player in his own division. Derek Carr's an 81.
Yeah. No, Justin, and by next Madden, Justin Herbert is
he could be in the 90s.
Yeah, I think he will be a 90s. He'll be a 90s talent-wise, whether Madden will give it to him or not.
Yeah. Kyler Murray's only an 82. This man was the rookie of the year, and I think he started the year last year like an 88 or something super high up. Now he's an 82. Now he did have, an up and down season, but in 82,
it was not a bad season. Is the thing. Not a bad season at all.
I don't get it, but we'll move on. We'll move on because we could talk about that all day. For the running backs, the top 10 they have listed here. Number 1 is Christian McCaffrey at 97. They have Derrick Henry at 96 overall, along with Nick Chubb as a 96, Dalvin Cook as a 95, Alvin Kamara 94, Aaron Jones 91, Saquon Barkley at 90, Josh Jacobs an 89, Ezekiel Elliott and Joe Mixon both rounding out the top 10 at an 88 overall. Again, how I don't know what you want. I don't know what more they want from these dudes. What does Derrick Henry have to do to prove he's the best running back in the league? You lead the league in rushing 2 years in a row. You do something that only 8 people have ever done in the history of the game. Go for over 2,000 yards, and he wasn't even he was in 8th place. His season last year was the 6th most rushing yards of all time in an individual season. I don't know what you want. And the guy, and that's fine. And no shot at Christian McCaffrey. I think he's great. The guy that you put ahead of him, it would be one thing if McCaffrey was fresh off his 2,000 all-purpose yard season where he went all over the place for receiving and rushing yards. He was injured. The guy you put above him didn't even play a full season. Egregious. That's all I got to say on that.
And I'm going to save all of my comments. We're doing top 10 running backs later in the show, giving our own top 10.
That's fair.
So I'm going to save what I've got to say for then.
I just don't get it. And we'll speed this up. So then the rest, without my input, you had the top 10 wide receivers as well as the top 5 rookie receivers revealed. But we'll stick with just the top 10 receivers for now. Joining the 99 overall club was Devontae Adams. In 98, you had DeAndre Hopkins and Tyreek Hill. At 97, Stephon Diggs. Tennessee Titans own Julio Jones at 95. You had Michael Thomas at a 94. Keenan Allen at a 93. Amari Cooper, 92. Mike Evans at 90. And Allen Robinson at 91. So you kind of see a lot different from the quarterbacks. The receivers falling right in the line with pretty much one rating separating pretty much each line. For the tight ends, we had also the 99 club, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was followed by George Kittle at a 96. Darren Waller had a 93 overall rating. Mark Andrews of the Ravens at an 88. Hunter Henry of the Patriots at 87. Austin Hooper and Rob Gronkowski at an 86. Mike Gesicki and TJ Hawkinson at an 85. And Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Goedert rounding that out at an 84. For the top 10 offensive line, you had Zach Martin at a 98, David Bakhtiari at a 96, Quentin Nelson and Teron Armstead at a 95. You had Trent Williams at a 94, Ronnie Staley at 93, Brandon Brooks and Rodney Hudson at 92, and then Jason Kelsey and Tyron Smith at a 91. For the defensive linemen, Aaron Donald also in the 99 overall club, followed by Fletcher Cox of the Eagles at a 94. Massive drop-off there. Then you have Chris Jones, DeForest Buckner, and Cameron Hayward, all 92s. Michael Pierce at a 91. Calais Campbell a 90. Kenny Clark, Stephon Tuitt at an 89, and Vita Vea at an 88. For the edge rushers, and that's just kind of how they broke it down, like true interior defensive linemen. And then the edge rushers, Myles Garrett at a 98, Khalil Mack 96, TJ Watt and Chandler Jones sharing 94, Cameron Jordan and Von Miller both at 93, and I believe they also had J.J. Watt at a 94 as well. Joey Bosa was a 92, Nick Bosa was a 90, and then Zadarius Smith at an 89. The worst, in my personal opinion, was how they rated the linebackers. That was just horrible. But anyways, we'll get into that. At a 94, you had Fred Warner, 93, Levante David, 92, Bobby Wagner, 91, Demario Davis, 90, Eric Kendricks, 89, Darius Leonard, 88, Roquan Smith, 87, Dante Hightower, and then you had Miles Jack and Deion Jones. Rounding out at 86. And then you have for the cornerbacks in the 99 club, Jalen Ramsey taking the reins there. Stephon Gilmore at a 97. Jair Alexander at a 95. Tre'Davious White of the Bills at a 93. Marlon Humphrey at a 92. Xavier Howard, who was requested a trade from Miami at a 91. James Bradbury, who was in both of our top 10s for cornerbacks, moving on up to the top 10 in Madden at an 89. Denzel Ward and Kendall Fuller of the Washington football team at an 89. And then Darius Slay of the Eagles at an 88. And then, of course, we have the safeties. Kansas City's own Tyrann Mathieu leading the way at a 95. Budda Baker as a 93. Devin McCourty of the Patriots, 92. Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons at a 91. Harrison Smith and Jamal Adams share the 90 overall rating. And then we have 3 rounding out for the safeties at an 89 overall with Adrian Amos, Eddie Jackson, and Mika Fitzpatrick. So, real quick before we move into our top 10 at different positions, did you have any thing to say far as what Madden needs to work on, what you liked, anything at all?
We'll cover safeties in our own top 10 a little bit later, but it's got to be said for me, Minkah Fitzpatrick at an 89 is absolutely absurd. I love the Jesse Bates love that he's a 91 overall. I like that they're giving him some credit. But for Minkah Fitzpatrick to be an 89, and based on the way they ranked these, they actually didn't put him in any specific order, I don't think. But if you go to the Madden website, like Aaron Donald's 99, but he's number 1 overall. And it's not done by last name. Maybe it's done by first name because his name's Aaron. But essentially, I saw it as like they ranked him like 1 through 10, and Aaron Donald happens to be the best player in the game. So if that's the case, and they're saying Minkah Fitzpatrick's the top 10 or the 10th best safety, I'm going to have some pretty harsh words for Madden when our safety list rolls around. Outside of that, I knew my guy Gannon was going to be upset with the linebackers. I'm going to let
the worst.
I'm going to let Gannon talk about the linebackers. For me, the only member of the 99 club that I wasn't 100% sold on was Devontae Adams, and you've got to hear me out real quick on Devontae Adams because he's great, he's phenomenal. But to me, one, he's not the best receiver in football, and you're also saying Devontae Adams, based on these ratings, is the best player on the Packers offense. I believe Devontae Adams is the 3rd best player on the Packers offense based on rating. Yep, I said 3rd best player, and
Bakhtiari.
Yeah, Bakhtiari being the 2nd best player on the Packers offense. So to me, I personally, if I was going to put somebody in the 99 slot for a receiver, would have been Hopkins. I mean, they gave it to Adams. I'm not worried. I see what happened to the last 99 receiver that they chose over Hopkins, what happened to him. So not worried about it. The safety one got me, but I'll have my own time to go on a big old rant about safeties.
Also, to a side note, Derrick Henry being the same rating as Nick Chubb was also disrespectful as well. That's just ridiculous. I didn't throw that in there when we talked about the running backs. He hasn't separated himself at least as hands down the 2nd best running back. Like, come on, man. Like, that's just horrible. But in the end, to wrap this up, because I don't want to go on a tangent too long, the linebackers the safeties are really bad, but the linebackers they don't know what they're talking about at all. Because first of all, how is only the best linebacker in all of football a 94? The best at the position is not even that good. First of all, you got it all wrong. Fred Warner, no disrespect. No disrespect at all. Great player. He would arguably be in my top 3. Arguably. Definitely not hands down the best. And then, honestly, a 94 is probably a good rating for Fred Warner. The problem is you put the best linebacker as a 92. What has Bobby Wagner done to be ranked not 1st, not 2nd, but 3rd? Are you kidding me? Listen, I know the Bucs just won the Super Bowl. I know we want to rate their players as super high as possible. We want to give them all the love because they deserve it. Their defense looked great on Super Bowl night. Bro, Levante David wishes he could be Bobby Wagner. I'm sorry. He is just not as good. One of the best safeties. He probably would be my 2nd or 3rd linebacker in the game. But there's levels to this, and he is not better than Bobby Wagner. I am terribly sorry. But you know what's even crazy, though? I almost have to go back on my statement about giving the love to the linebackers because they left out one of the best linebackers in all of football in Devin White. What are you doing? What are you doing? What is going on around here? Listen, Dante Hightower is a beast, but he is Miles Jack, great player, not better than Devin White. Deion Jones, an 86, laughable. I mean, there's nothing good about this list. The ratings are off. The order is off. Missing players, adding players. And listen, I'm Titans till I die. I will rock this till the end of time. Darius Leonard, are you kidding me? In 89? In 89? That is – Josh Allen's bad for not being a 90, but Darius Leonard not being at least a 90 is by far the worst that I've seen so far. For a person that's in the 80s that should be at least a 90, bare minimum. That is horrible. And Toby knows I will not go and break and stick my neck out for any Colts player. That is horrible. Darius Leonard not being at least a 90 is absolutely pathetic, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
And I think it's good that you brought up Devin White. There's a Bucs player on defense that was not included in these top 10 Madden ratings that later on tonight I'm going to show some love to, that I think was actually incorrectly excluded from a top 10 list. But it wasn't just Devin White. Interesting Bucs ratings. On the offensive line, they rated Tristan Wirfs, who was in his first year, 89 offensive tackle. Tristan Wirfs in 89. Ryan Ramczyk, who just got the highest contract for a right tackle ever, the same rating as Tristan Wirfs. So a little bit hit or miss with the Bucs ratings there, to say the least.
Started on their next top 10 for wide receivers, because A.J. Brown is not apparently a top 20, not even a top 20 receiver. He is a borderline top 10. Call me biased, whatever you want. He's not even in the top 20. Laughable.
Yeah. They didn't include one of my guys on there either, I noticed. Just looking at your list, Kenny Golladay not being in that top 20 was
laughable.
Was interesting. But
Robert Woods, on what earth are we looking at is better than Kenny Golladay and A.J. Brown? On what planet Earth? Robbie Anderson on planet Earth.
Robbie Anderson, I don't even know he's not even the best receiver on his own team.
On his own team.
If you ask me, but that's all right. No disrespect to Robbie Anderson.
Terry McLaurin, bro.
Deep ball god.
Listen, Terry McLaurin's a beast. Terry's a beast. He ain't Odell? He's the same rating as Odell? What have we done? What have we done? They have to be doing this on purpose. So people like us can go here and go on shows and talk about how awful these ratings are to then spark interest. This is egregious. I'm done talking about the linebackers, but the receivers are bad too. And the safeties, Minka Fitzpatrick, are you serious?
I think what it is
hold on. Last gripe, and then I'll let you have the floor. I'll be done talking about Madden. The nerve, the unmitigated gall. What they have done to Prez, what they have said, Jamal Adams being only a 90, only being a 90? Unbelievable. There's no Buda Baker wishes. He was on his level. You have lost your mind. Jamal Adams, not even the best safety in his own division. Laughable. Absolutely laughable. Jesse Bates deserves a whole lot of credit. Great season. Not on the level of Justin Simmons, who they haven't rated the same as. Lies. Justin Simmons is not better than Harrison Smith, nor Jamal Adams. Those are both lies. Devin McCourty has been the most consistent safety of all time. He is a 92, 93 every single year. Not going to go up, not going to go down. He is just as mellow as it gets. He's staying right there. And then Tyrann Mathieu takes the cake for me, which I'm fine with. But easily debate between the best safety in football is Tyrann Mathieu and Jamal Adams. So that's the last thing. The floor is all yours.
I'm just going to say, I think some of the ratings have to do with the team. Because when you go and you pick teams on Madden, they want to have somebody on a team that's like far and away, that's like far and away their best player, a good player, so you stick with them. They wouldn't want to spend all those, countless days making teams. You get, I don't know, I'll just say a random team like the Jets, and be like, oh, this sucks. Everybody's a 75. And they probably are in real life. But they're going to give some guys bumps because of the teams. They want you to play the game. So, I think some of it has to do with that. But that's just, I don't know. Some of them I don't really have explanations for. And some of them I try to rationalize it for them because I know I'll buy the game. So I try to rationalize it, but it's tough. It's tough rationalizing some of these.
Yeah, that is horrible. So we went off on a tangent about Madden's top 10. We're going to give our top 10 so you know exactly where we stand on some of these positions because, come on, man. So bad. So bad. So we'll start with the interior defensive lineman because we want to show some love to the big fellas making it happen up front. You know, they don't always have the most glamorous stats, but they truly do make a huge difference to their team. So we'll start with the defensive lineman, and we'll actually start. I can hear myself.
Try it now.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello. Okay, we're good. And we'll actually start with CBS's list, as I want to make sure we get that in here as well. This year it was done by CBS sports writer Jared Dubin, as he listed his top 10 interior linemen. So I would start from 10 and go on down. So for number 10, he has Jonathan Allen of the Washington football team, Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans, Kenny Clark of the Green Bay Packers, Grady Jarrett of the Atlanta Falcons, Cameron Hayward of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Stephon Tuitt of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Vita Vea of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs, DeForest Buckner of the Indianapolis Colts, and Aaron Donald, of course, of the Los Angeles Rams, my main man. You see the jersey back there. I'll let you reveal your list first.
All right. At number 10, I've got Kenny Clark for the Packers. They moved him into the nose tackle spot, so the numbers are down a little bit. But he's a playmaker. I've got Leonard Williams from the Giants at number 9. Leonard Williams, there's not a whole lot of help along that defensive line. He had a breakout season. I've got Vita Vea way down my list at 8. A phenomenal player. Just can't put him near as high as CBS Sports did. At 7, I've got Grady Jarrett from the Falcons. At 6, I've got Stephon Tuitt from the Pittsburgh Steelers. At 4, Cam Hayward, also of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tough to run against the Steelers. At 4, I've got Fletcher Cox of the Eagles. At 3, I've got DeForest Buckner for the Colts. 2, Chris Jones for the Chiefs. And number 1, really, I say this every time we get a top 10, but this is the most obvious number 1.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald at number 1. No debate, hands down, the best defensive player in football.
The day that Aaron Donald is not the number 1 rated defensive lineman is the day I stop buying Madden. I think at that point I'm done.
Well, you'd have to be.
That's a crime against humanity. So,
I think the guy's been all-pro ever since since his second year in the league, he's been all-pro every season.
It's just not fair. His down season's like, what's going on with Aaron Donald? He only has 13 sacks this year. Bro, that's a career year for most people. In fact, if he averages 13 sacks for the remainder of his career, like he's one of the highest, that's one of the most sacks ever in a career. It's like, what is he doing this season? Anyways, so for my top 10, you're actually going to be, I think you'll be pretty surprised how close ours are. So number 10, I have Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. A lone wolf on that defense from a season ago. Defense was pitiful. Jeffrey Simmons was pretty much the lone highlight on that defense. He is everywhere, making key plays. He gets a lot of plays that necessarily don't generate stats. A lot of guys creating a lot. I guess hurries do, but he mixes up in the middle. So Jeffrey Simmons, 10 for me. I had Vita Vea at 9. I had Kenny Clark at 8. Grady Jarrett of the Falcons at 7. Stephon Tuitt of the Steelers at 6. Cameron Hayward of the Steelers at 5. DeForest Buckner of the Colts at 4. Fletcher Cox of the Eagles at 3. Chris Jones of the Chiefs at 2. And then Aaron Donald, of course, at number 1. So pretty much we had all the same person except for Leonard Williams at your 10. I had Jeffrey Simmons at my 10, and then CBS had Jonathan Allen at 10. And everybody else was the exact same. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with any of the three guys. I guess I'll explain the Leonard Williams one. And essentially, it's the fact that he put up big numbers. And I know that sometimes he would shift outside so he'd get more sack numbers. But 11.5 sacks from an inside and outside, does both, playing that position on a defense where there's not a whole lot of help elsewhere. They've got a good defensive backfield, but there's not a whole lot of help getting to the quarterback. This isn't a thing where Leonard Williams is getting singled up every single time like a Steelers defensive lineman would. So for him to go and have 11.5 sacks for that defense, I thought was really telling. He's kind of living up to that potential that he showed in New York his rookie season, or the other New York, the Jets, his rookie season when everybody was real high on him. I feel like he's sort of getting back to that player. And I think the Giants adding Ojulari, the rookie this year, is going to help his numbers even more.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I think you make a very compelling case. I think it's kind of funny. You have us three, you, me, and the CBS writer who gave our top 10. Madden had Michael Pierce and Calais Campbell in their top 10. A couple older guys. I think it's kind of their time has been passed, in my opinion. They've been top 10 in several Maddens, but come on now, Calais Campbell. This isn't Madden 2016.
Yeah, agreed. It's sort of a respect factor, where these guys have been so good for so long. Sort of the J.J. Watt deal, with rating him a 98 last year.
Don't even.
It's sort of just more of a respect factor than a production factor.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great young guys. I do question CBS where they select or slotted Vita Vea.
No.
Yeah, and it would be one thing too. I mean, he was good. He was solid. He came back. He made a difference for the Bucs in the playoffs when he came back. But the guy played 5 games in the regular season last year. He only played 5 games, and yeah, two sacks in 5 games is pretty solid for a defensive lineman. But above some of these other dudes.
Well, my main gripe with the CBS Sports list was there was no Fletcher Cox at all. And he was in both of our top 5s. He didn't have a list at all, so that just cannot happen.
Yeah, I don't really know why the disdain for Fletcher Cox. I mean, 9 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks last year. That's good. That's a defensive tackle. Like, you're not going to put up monster numbers.
That team was bad. Like, they just were not good. So
yeah,
he did what he could.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem is you get stuck. Sort of, what does the team do?
Yeah.
And when you see the defense get torched, you say, well, there's nobody out there making any plays. It's hard for a defensive tackle who Fletcher Cox, he gets doubled often. A lot and very often. So for him to make an impact, it's going to be a lot harder than for a lot of other players on defense, which is why, and I go back to this Defensive Player of the Year conversation, Aaron Donald, our number 1 guy, this is why he won Defensive Player of the Year. Because raw stats, okay, TJ Watt probably had better raw stats than Aaron Donald. But Aaron Donald is doing it out of a spot where you're not expected to put up numbers. You're expected to clog everything up so everybody else goes and gets their numbers. So, yeah, and I'm not sure what CBS Sports was watching. I thought Fletcher Cox was good. All the Eagles games that we watched, I thought he was performing at a level that was just fine. And if you remember, a lot of times to move the ball on the Eagles, you had to throw on them against the pretty porous defensive backfield, sort of negate the impact that a guy like Fletcher Cox could have. So there's still teams that are plotting against him, and that's when you're a defensive tackle and you can get teams to abandon some aspects of their game. Like that's doing your job and then some.
Yeah.
And then if you're Aaron Donald, you had 13.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles on top of it. That helps.
Yeah, he's just an animal. He's just an animal. But moving on, so now over to the offensive side of the ball, our top 10 running backs. So for CBS, the running backs was done by CBS Sports writer Patrick Walker. With his top 10, his running backs went as followed. So he has Joe Mixon of the Bengals, Josh Jacobs of the Raiders, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones at 7. He has Nick Chubb at 6, Ezekiel Elliott at 5, Alvin Kamara at 4, Dalvin Cook at 3, Christian McCaffrey at 2, and then King Derrick Henry at 1. So mine followed a little similar. I think a couple people were way too high, in my opinion, on his list. So mine went as follows. So I actually have the exact same 10 in very different order. So for me, number 10 is Josh Jacobs, followed by Ezekiel Elliott at 9. At 8, I have Joe Mixon. 7, I have Saquon Barkley. At 6, I have Aaron Jones. 5, Nick Chubb. 4, Dalvin Cook. 3, Alvin Kamara. 2, Christian McCaffrey. And number 1, Derrick Henry, despite what Madden tries to do.
Yeah, we're going to be hearing about that a lot in the group, I'm sure.
I'm not letting that go.
No, I do not expect you to, even a little bit. So, my top 10, there's one glaring difference in terms of name. Right off the bat, my number 10 is actually Jonathan Taylor of the Colts.
Eesh.
Jonathan Taylor of the Colts at 10. I've got Joe Mixon at 9. I've got Josh Jacobs at 8. Aaron Jones at 7. Saquon Barkley 6. I have Nick Chubb at 5. Alvin Kamara at 4. Dalvin Cook 3. Christian McCaffrey 2. And Derrick Henry 1. And I do want to explain Christian McCaffrey real quick, because we had this debate last year when we talked about players. And I feel like this year you were kind of wanting me to go McCaffrey so we can have a big debate. I'm not going to do it, though, because even though I like McCaffrey's skill set, I still do. I like that he can catch passes. I like that he makes guys miss. He breaks a lot of tackles, even for a guy at his size. I like what he can do, maybe skill-wise more than Derrick Henry, but he had a shoulder and leg problem last year. Coming into this year, I'm not taking it over the guy who ran for 2,000 yards. So
5th all time.
So
5th all time.
yeah, I wasn't gonna go that route this year.
What do you want?
Maybe after next year we'll have a fun debate if McCaffrey can stay healthy.
And I'm open for that.
Perhaps there'll be a fun debate. But I noticed Ezekiel Elliott very high on CBS Sports list.
Top 5.
And Ezekiel Elliott did not make my list. And I know, anybody who knows me knows that this did come with a slight bias. But I want to read off some things. I kept them on this really tiny, you see how tiny this notebook is? I wrote some stuff down on this notebook about Ezekiel Elliott last year and why I went Jonathan Taylor at 10. Ezekiel Elliott, by the way, for the record, is my 11, with David Montgomery my 12. But let me just
love for Chris Carson.
It's tough. I wish the Seahawks utilized him more, and he's actually a good pass catcher, way better than he was at college at Oklahoma State, I'll tell you that. But here's some things about Ezekiel Elliott that kept him off my list that I wrote down in the tiny notebook. So obviously, he had the lowest yards per attempt in his career. Not surprising, as he played behind maybe the best offensive line I've ever seen in my life, his rookie and sophomore seasons in the league. He had the lowest total number of touchdowns in his career, despite having a season where he played 5 less games. He had less rushing yards in this season than he did in the season in which he only played 10 games. And this season, too, played with a backup quarterback. So it wasn't like Dak Prescott was out there throwing the ball 50 times a game. He was the guy. He averaged 20 yards per game less than his previous worst season. 8 drops, 11.3 drop percentage on targets. While targeted as a running back, the safety route, 3 interceptions, and a passer rating of under 70. And that doesn't even talk about the biggest thing that he did wrong last year, which was losing 6 fumbles. And I don't know if you guys remember watching Cowboys games, but a lot of those fumbles came when the Cowboys either needed to get back into the game or when the Cowboys and the other team were basically no momentum, it's going to be one play that causes the momentum swing, and a lot of times it was an Ezekiel Elliott fumble. So there's a lot of things that are sort of out of his control with the offensive line, the situation where the defenses can key on him because you've got Andy Dalton at quarterback. But the guy just didn't have a good year. And a lot of it wasn't his doing, but a lot of it was. And for a guy who we saw that was so explosive his first, second year in the league, who could make guys miss, who was hurdling guys, running through defenders, we haven't seen that Zeke in a while. And this is going to sound pretty mean. I think it might be the beginning of the downfall for Ezekiel Elliott.
I mean, he's moved slowly down my list.
And you give him so many touches.
Like a top 3, no debate. Then it was a top 5, no debate. Now he's my 9.
Yeah, and the thing was, the Cowboys gave him so many touches when he started out there. I mean, it felt like he got the ball on almost every play his rookie season. He touched the ball so many times, and over the course of a running back's career, which we know is a lot shorter than all the other positions, when you touch the ball that many times, unless you are an absolute superhuman freakazoid like Derrick Henry, it cannot be sustained. And even Derrick Henry at some point will slow down. When, we don't know. But at some point it will happen.
Hopefully not.
And I think Ezekiel Elliott's just on that career peak where he's kind of on the tail end. And I think Jonathan Taylor is going up. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, over 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns last year.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Jonathan Taylor running behind a great offensive line. No quarterback now, which I didn't know at the time when I made this list. But
no, I hear you. Just I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sneeze at 1,100 yards. That's a great season. But he's only done it one time. I think it's a little premature, especially when you have guys like Leonard Fournette, even who's been there, done that. He obviously he had to split some time with some other players. But I don't know. I think just Jonathan Taylor needs more time. Austin Eckler, had he not gotten hurt, what kind of season he could have had. There's just some other guys who I think have proven it more than just one season. So that's just a little too premature for me. But I do like him being on there. I like the thought process because I think he's definitely coming. And by this time next year, I think there may be a switch coming.
Yeah, to be fair, to Jonathan Taylor, he was third in the league in rushing, but it was just such a steep drop-off. From 2 to 3 was a steep drop-off, and then 1 to 2 was even steeper. So, especially for yourself as a Titans fan, seeing somebody who got 2,000 yards in a season, 1,100 yards kind of feels like nothing. It was actually 1,169, so quite a nice season there for Jonathan Taylor.
All right.
But yeah, Dalvin Cook last year is going to get overshadowed because of 2,000 yards. But Dalvin Cook,
he went on.
over 1,500 yards, 16 touchdowns. I mean, he matched Alvin Kamara in touchdown runs, and Alvin Kamara had 6 in a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And big shouts to Saquon Barkley, who is ahead of Aaron Jones in mine. I know he wasn't on Madden, but Saquon Barkley needs to get healthy.
Yeah.
And he's still got it. In terms of just pure talent at the running back spot, Saquon Barkley, he's probably maybe a top 3 guy in terms of just pure talent. He's got to get healthy. I want to see what he can do. For real, the Giants have kind of gotten a better line a little bit. Kind of. Andrew Thomas, it'll be Andrew Thomas' second year, so they might be better.
Yeah.
But
we'll see. I don't know. But so we got to go back to our guy Jared Dubbin here because he helped us out, blessing us with his list for his top 10 edge rushers going into this upcoming. So his list, which is a lot different from mine. At 10, he has Danielle Hunter of the Vikings at 10, Chase Young of Washington at 9, Chandler Jones at 8, Zadarius Smith at 7, Brian Burns of the Panthers at 6. He has Shaquille Barrett at 5. Joey Bosa at 4. Nick Bosa at 3. TJ Watt at 2. And Myles Garrett at 1. So I do want to say here, I think he completely left out any type of outside linebackers. Those are all straight up like considered DNs. I could form my list a little bit different. Is the guys who are like the Khalil Macks and the Von Millers of the world who are stand-up DNs. So I do want to put that into perspective. But even with that, my list is completely different. I'll reveal mine, and I'll let you reveal yours first for the linemen. So mine went as follows, and these are still true DNs for most of mine. So at 10, I paid respect. I won't be too disrespectful. At 10, I have J.J. Watt. I'm going to completely leave him off there. At 9, I have Nick Bosa. At 8, I have Zadarius Smith. At 7, I have Joey Bosa. At 6, I have Von Miller. At 5, I have Cam Jordan. At 4, Chandler Jones. 3, TJ Watt. 2, Khalil Mack. And then number 1, Myles Garrett.
Interesting. So I guess I'm getting a bit disrespectful with my list then.
Oh, boy.
Actually, super unbiased by me here. At number 10, I went Chase Young. I went Chase Young 10.
See, I went Nick. That I put J.J. Watt in there because I'll be accused of hating on J.J. Watt, and I don't.
I don't hate J.J. Watt either. But this is sort of a similar thing to Ezekiel Elliott and Jonathan Taylor for me. I'm putting the first year or 1 year down guy.
It's a new scenery for JJ.
That's true. It may be a career renaissance, although if the trade goes through, he might not have his partner in crime on the other side. Yeah. At number 9, I went Nick Bosa. Maybe might have been a little bit higher. Obviously got hurt last year coming off an injury. I have his brother Joey at 8. Now we're going to get out of the Ohio portion of my list, which I hated putting together. To go to number 7, Zadarius Smith from the Pack. At number 6, Shaquille Barrett for me, who was not on Madden's top 10 edge rushers, and I felt definitely should have been. 4 sacks in the postseason. I've got Cam Jordan and the mustache at 5, down in the Bayou. At 4, I've got Chandler Jones of, right now, the Cardinals. But we'll see where he's at when the season starts. I have Khalil Mack at 3. Khalil Mack, that's my guy. But I had to show love to the guys in the AFC North. I've got TJ Watt at 2. I've got Myles Garrett at 1. And it's interesting. I didn't know who you were going to go at 1 for this. I don't think you knew who I was going to go for with 1. Interesting, we both went with Myles Garrett. I know Madden went with Myles Garrett too.
Myles Garrett's a beast.
There could be debate to be had there. I guess when it comes to debating Garrett and TJ Watt for me, it's that if I were out there and I lined up against TJ Watt, I'd say this is going to suck. And if it were me out there and I lined up against Myles Garrett, I would say, like, it's not even going to suck because I'm not going to be there. I'm going
so
he's scary. He's a physical specimen. Myles Garrett, just an amazing athlete. If he ever plays a full 16-game season, I think he can get to that 20-sack plateau potentially in his career. I think he might get a season where he's got 20 sacks. And TJ Watt, he lost his buddy, not in our list, Bud Dupree, on the other side in Pittsburgh. I don't know how that'll affect him, any of that. But, so that's sort of the thought process that I went with Myles Garrett as my 1 over TJ Watt, who obviously had better overall numbers. 61 pressures on the year. TJ Watt, that's insane.
Yeah.
But this was hard, man. This was a hard one to put together because it's all the guys that you have to leave off. I mean, there's so many good guys. Jason Pierre-Paul we had to leave off. Danielle Hunter was off my list. Von Miller. J.J. Watt, as you pointed out. Matt Judon was a Pro Bowler going to the Patriots, had to leave him off. Bud Dupree on your team had to get left off. I mean, What a stacked position.
Yeah, that was hard, and that was the reasoning that came down to Shaq Barrett. So I went with the older guys on this one. Von Miller wasn't on your list or CBS's. Von Miller, I know, is an injured guy. He's still got a lot in the tank. In my opinion, I think Von Miller can go out there and cause havoc. And when he's healthy, I'm going with the healthy side of Von Miller here. That's why I didn't quite put him in my top 10, in my top 5, but I had to put him in my top 10 somewhere. Just because when he is there, that defense is a different breed, and his presence is just cannot be ignored. So I just felt I was obligated to put Von Miller there. J.J. Watt, because you make a very good point with it was so hard, so many dudes to leave off. Shaquille Barrett was hard. Yes, Bud Dupree, but another guy who got injured. So a lot of health I think is a lot affecting this position, because if everyone stayed healthy, I think we'd really have our hands tied. Because Chandler Jones even has been injured in previous.
Yeah.
So
had Daniil Hunter stayed healthy, he would have been on my list too, along with the CBS guys.
Yeah, so this position's very hard to rate, because these guys are kind of banged up. Even Myles Garrett himself, who's all of our number ones, including Madden. Myles Garrett keeps getting banged up, so it's kind of hard. He's fortunately not been out for a super significant amount of time like some of these other guys have. So that was my thing. Just injuries were pretty hard to do. I really don't understand Brian Burns being at number 6. Listen, no disrespect to him, but I mean there was no shot that when I saw that Brian Burns was making my top 10.
Yeah, so Brian Burns was 6 on his list, correct?
Yes.
For me, Brian Burns is 4th in the division in the NFC South. Is where I had him rated. I had him slotted behind Cam Jordan, Shaq Barrett, JPP, who didn't make my top 10. Then it was Brian Burns and his mate Hassan Reddick behind that. I love the Panthers defense, and I'll probably talk about it a lot when we do our preview episode about how much I like the Panthers defensive backfield, how much I like the rushers there. But way, way too early for Brian Burns.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of potential there. 9 sacks last year was really nice, but now for me, I had to take a guy like Chase Young. I told you I like the playmakers. Chase Young, it felt like in every game down the stretch for Washington, was in the middle of causing or finishing off a turnover play for Washington that sort of would change their game. I remember watching it, and I was obviously upset. I don't cheer for these guys, even when they leave Ohio. I've got mad beef with them. But it was really impressive seeing what he did down the stretch. So a lot of those guys who just missed the cut, just go out there, force more fumbles, more strip sacks, house one in Week 17 like Chase Young, and help me bump some of these Ohio guys off this list. Yeah. 33% of my top 10 was Ohio guys. Come on, edge rushers. We can beat them.
Leave them edge rushers alone. Leave them alone.
I'm cheering for all the other edge rushers.
People who wish these edge rushers would leave them alone are these offensive linemen who we're about to give our rankings for. So, I don't know. Did you do yours offensive tackles and interior, or just all at once? Or all of them combined?
I did 3 different ones for center, guard, and tackle. Oh. And then I also did a 4th, which is, I'll just, instead of giving you my top 10 for everyone, I'm just going to give you my top 5 at each.
Okay, because I actually combined mine.
You combined all of them.
I created my, just straight through, who I think the top offensive linemen, regardless of position, are. So CBS, and this one was done by Tyler Sullivan, CBS sports writer. He did his top 10 offensive tackles and top 10 interior linemen. So I'll read off his top 10 tackles first. So he has Garrett Bowles of the Broncos at 10, Taylor Moton of the Panthers at 9, Jack Conklin of the Browns at 8, Tristan Wirfs of the Bucks at 7. He's got Laramie Tunsil at 6, Ronnie Stanley at 5, Teron Armstead at 4, Ryan Ramczyk at 3, Trent Williams at 2, and then David Bakatari at 1 for the offensive tackles. And then his interior lineman was Frank Ragnow of the Lions at 10, Wyatt Teller of the Browns at 9, Rodney Hudson of the Cardinals at 8, Ali Marpet of the Bucks at 7, Joel Batonio, of the Browns at 6, Joe Tooney of the Chiefs at 5, Brandon Scherf of the Washington football team at 4, Corey Lindsey of the Chargers at 3, Zach Martin of the Cowboys at 2, and then Quentin Nelson of the Colts at 1. So that's kind of how he broke down his interior linemen. I don't know I'll let you go first since you kind of broke it down by each, and then I'll kind of give you my summary of everybody.
Okay. All right. So I went a little bit expanded. I like to give these guys some love. Nobody does it, We'll find another podcast doing this, giving the big guys this kind of love. They want to talk about the divas. I'm about the guys in the trenches, and I'll start at the very, very middle, the heart of the trenches, if you will, the center position. I've got Frank Ragnow of the Lions at 5, J.C. Treader for the Browns. I've got him at 4, Jason Kelsey, the worst Kelsey brother, at 3. I'm sorry, that was disrespectful. This is about him. This isn't about the tight ends. I've got Corey Linsley of now the Chargers at 2, and I've got Rodney Hudson in the desert at number 1, moving away from the Raiders, which you love to see. To the sides of them, the offensive guard spot, I've got Joe Tooney, now a Kansas City Chief, the left guard. Brandon Scherf, all-pro from Washington football team, the right guard. Joel Batonio of the Cleveland Browns is my number 3, the left guard there. Zach Martin, he's owned the game until my number 1 guy came in, Quentin Nelson, hands down, no debating it for me, the top guard in all of football. And then at tackles, I have Ronnie Stanley for the Ravens at 5, who pushed out of his spot my guy Orlando Brown, who was number 6 on my list, sent him to Kansas City. Teron Armstead of the Saints at 4, Trent Williams at 3 from the 49ers. The only right tackle in my top 5, Ryan Ramczyk, as my number 2. So 2 Saints tackles, top 5. And then the best beer chugger in football, the most fun at basketball games, Aaron Rodgers' main man, David Bakhtiari of the Packers, my number 1, and the top tackle in all of football.
Nice.
And I'll wait till the end. I gave my top 5 overall team offensive lines at the very end, but I'm going to wait to see who you've got in your top 10.
Very interesting, kind of hearing some of the names that you put together, not knowing that you were going to do that, because I pretty much picked quite a few off of your top 3 at each position. So at number 10, and I did some research on this. I looked this up. This was hard. Again, so many names I had to leave off. So this was actually really hard to do. And I did it mixing the positions. So here we go. So number 10 for me, I had Rodney Hudson. Number 9, Teron Armstead. At 8, Laramie Tunsil. 7, Ronnie Staley. 6, Corey Linsley. At 5, I have Zach Martin. 4, Ryan Ramczyk. 3, Trent Williams. At 2, Quentin Nelson. And then 1, David Bakhtiari.
That's definitely solid.
Yeah.
That's definitely solid. Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised getting to the Madden, going back to Madden. Zach Martin, he's run the game in terms of the guards. In fact, on TikTok, I saw somebody call him the second best offensive lineman of all time, which is that's overstepping bounds. Definitely. Madden rated him the number 1 best offensive lineman in all of football, regardless of guard, tackle, everything. I do not see how right now the best guard could not be Quentin Nelson. We talk about Aaron Donald, what he's done as soon as he came into the league. He dominated. He was All-Pro, Pro Bowl every year. Quentin Nelson has been an All-Pro in each of his first 3 seasons. And he's by far the most terrifying offensive lineman, I think, to go against. Bakhtiari's a brick wall. Quentin Nelson's an attacker. He seeks the linebackers, the defensive linemen that he can blow up. And there's not a whole lot of offensive linemen you talk about that really jump off when you're just watching a game casually, that you look at him and you say, I'm going to watch the lineman on this play. Quentin Nelson, one of those guys. I love watching him play football. I love going through watching Colts games. They're not – I mean, Phillip Rivers didn't really interest me a whole lot last year. But seeing Quentin Nelson blocking in those run games, they'd pull him. They'd run Nyheim Hines behind him. Oh, that was just good stuff. That's going back to, like, middle school football when the best guy on our team is a lineman and you know it. And you're just watching him to see what he does to the other guy.
Yeah.
Man, you don't see it very often, so Quentin Nelson is like a breath of fresh air. Oh, a breath of fresh air.
There you go.
Man, I almost ruined that. I was like that guy in the Marshawn Lynch video who called him a fresh of breath air. No, a breath of fresh air for those of us who wanted to see really great offensive line play. I know you went with Laramie Tunsil as your number 8. Laramie Tunsil, for me, I mean, I really like him. I think sometimes I get bogged down in the fact that he plays on a line with the Houston Texans. And traditionally they're known for letting their quarterback get pummeled into the turf.
That is
true.
But
I'm interested, though, because Laramie Tunsil, he is on my top 10 tackles list. Didn't make the top 5. I am interested to hear what made you go Tunsil over a few of the other offensive tackles in the game.
So, listen, yeah, his offensive line, his team is just very, very bad. But he's still, for him to be on the blind side, like, he rarely do you see Deshaun Watson getting smacked when he doesn't see it coming. So that's a main thing. He at least allows, with the little time that Deshaun Watson has, I don't think you typically see it coming from his side, you know? And also, I think that a part where I was reading up on, kind of diving into what the season he had last year. Obviously, every Texan, by all accounts, had a very poor showing last year. But him himself, he's a very good run blocker. Like he's very good. And honestly, if you look at it, they were actually very good at running the football last year. So you add his ability to be still one of the best blindside pass blockers in the game. They're able to run the ball to his side, and he's protecting one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now he gets sacked all the freaking time, but it's not necessarily specifically from him or his side. That was my reasoning. I know, I think that probably would have been a sexier pick per se about 2 years ago, before he ended up as a Texan. But I still think there's a lot to be desired for Laramie Tunsil there. So that's kind of why I had him where I had him at. Because I see him and Ronnie Staley pretty close. I know Staley was on the other side, but I see those two kind of like neck and neck.
Yeah, and I love the point about him being a blindside protector. In fact, on my top 10 of all the linemen that played in over 75% of the games, only one guy allowed less sacks as an individual. That was David Bakhtiari of the Packers, who, of course, is our number 1 tackle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Laramie Tunsil, great pick. I didn't get to go through the full top 10. One guy that I wanted to point out that I don't think really anybody would have had on their list, besides maybe myself, maybe a few fans. I put Mekhi Becton at number 10 on my top 10 offensive tackles. And he was a rookie last year. Again, like Laramie Tunsil, horrible team. His numbers could be greater. 7 sacks allowed. But as a yeah, he did. He played for the Jets. Rookie left tackle. They kind of threw him in. But this guy here, in terms of his stature, his athleticism, if you don't remember Mekhi Becton, he's the 350-pound guy that ran a 4.8 40 in the 40-yard dash at the combine. Physical tools off the charts, and I think he's only going to get better. And for a guy coming in, Zach Wilson with the Jets, who has no veteran quarterback to help him learn the ropes, has a defensive-minded head coach, has, I'll call him limited offensive weapons and help. The one thing he does have going for him is I think they have a franchise left tackle in Laramie Tunsil and Mekhi Becton, a franchise left tackle who could protect him for years to come. And just outside my top 10, I had Penei Sewell for the Lions. I said I would never put a rookie top 10, and I did that for Kyle Pitts, even though he's top 10 talent at tight end already. Penei Sewell, to me, by the end of the year, and I think they're going to have him starting at right tackle because they actually do have a solid left tackle. But I think Penei Sewell is going to end up being an offensive lineman we talked about a lot this season, and one that I think a certain team in Cincinnati is going to really regret on passing.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was about to talk about another right tackle and Lane Johnson, a guy I normally would have put, into this conversation. He's, even as far as Madden is concerned, notorious for always being the highest rated right tackle every single year. And I think it's he's getting up there in age, and it's almost like the passing of the guard for a lot of these guys now. As I still think he's definitely worthy of being kind of in that conversation. So Lane Johnson almost made my top 10, but I think some of these younger guys are kind of taking over the pedestal as the cream of the crop now for the linemen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Lane Johnson was sort of he was in a mix for me that was 10 and then just outside of 10 with Andrew Whitworth, who's ancient, absolutely ancient, 15 years in the league. Taylor Lewan, your guy, who was hurt last season, coming back. And then Taylor Moton for the Panthers, who obviously he had in his top 10. They were all kind of in that same area for me. Yeah, fun to talk about linemen.
Yeah.
And before I completely move on, this was a debate last year that we had very late in the season when we debate if Rodgers has help or not with the Packers. The offensive line's always brought up, and we never really rank our best lines. We're just like, this is the best line in football. And then one thing will happen. Then next week we're calling a different team the best line in football. So before we go into the season right now, for me, I'm going to rank them, my best offensive lines in football from 5 to 1. At 5, the revamped Chiefs offensive line, which is pretty biased, but I love Brown. Tooney's a top 5 guard for me. They have a rookie starting at center. I think the rookie will end up starting, Creed Humphrey. And normally that would worry me, but I think that Creed Humphrey is the real deal. I thank the Green Bay Packers for taking Josh Myers ahead of Creed Humphrey and letting him fall to the Chiefs. I think he's going to be phenomenal. They get Duvernay Tardif back, the doctor who was out saving lives last year, could have helped saving Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and this year he's going to be asked to. And then I'm not going to talk about the right tackle because he didn't have a good Super Bowl, and I'm not going to talk about him because I don't want to get sad again, but it's Mike Reynolds. Anyway, my number 4, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. A lot of Cleveland Browns on our list, all over the place. 3, the Indianapolis Colts. They have my favorite offensive lineman to watch. A very talented offensive line all around. 2-1, it's close, but losing Corey Linsley, the center, moves the Packers to the number 2 offensive line, in my opinion, in all of football, if Bakhtiari's healthy. And the New Orleans Saints, the best offensive line. When you can block for a guy who runs in 6 touchdowns in one game, your offensive line is good. It's going to be credited as Alvin Kamara, but when you go back and look at the record books, you're going to say, oh, 2020 Saints offensive line must have been doing their thing. And I love them across the board. They had 2 of my top 5 tackles. They've got talented guards. They have a top 10 center for me. They had a Pro Bowl guard, actually, Andrus Peat, who was ironically not even in my top 10. Then they got my guy Cesar Ruiz from Michigan, who rounds out their starting 5. I love that offensive line. If they find a quarterback, they could still be in the mix. I'm just going to say that right now. If
Jameis
Winston's LASIK was a success, or if really it's going to depend on Jameis Winston's LASIK, because
that team is just too talented to be such a headache.
They are a headache. Their coach is getting mad at their star receiver for getting surgery too late. The defense is fighting the offense at practice. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson just fights everybody, apparently. So
Go Gators. Go Gators. But that's going to wrap it up for our NFL special here, 47 and a half. Definitely want to get our opinions out there on the new Madden ratings, the NFL news circling around the world right now, and of course, bring you guys our top 10 of a couple of positions. We will continue our top 10s. We still have several positions to get to, so we have our wide receivers, our safeties. Are we doing kickers? We're not doing kickers.
No.
We're leaving them
No,
alone.
just watch who makes it. That'll determine who the best kicker is.
Yeah.
Just keep up with who's making kicks.
Young Ho.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He'd be top 10 if you're keeping count at home. He'd be in our top 10.
He would be in my top 10. But we have several positions still to get to before the NFL season, and of course, we will end it with our top 10 head coaches going into this upcoming season. So stay tuned week to week for that. I want to thank you guys for listening to this special edition of the Sports Resort. Always fun with my main man Toby here. Again, hit us up if you're needing shirts. I will. I think I've set on a price. So for those of you who have been asking, but just hit us up. Let us know if you're needing a Sports Resort T-shirt. But then again, thank you guys for listening. You guys have a great night.